Who would have thought that you'd get a football challenge from me? But lo and behold, here it is. So we're looking at Southend United's football stats throughout the years or their different seasons and how they performed. So the first thing we want to do when we're reading in our data is notice in the input step that we have two fields that are first of all named with just a P. So the first one is played and the last one is points. So we're just going to make sure that we rename in the input step our P1 to be points or PTS. Okay, and then we can have a look at the data that we're working with. So we have the seasons, so the start year to the end year, because the season sort of starts, I'm going to probably be wrong here, but it starts in August. So therefore it goes over into the next year as well. So, and then we have all the different leagues and how they've changed throughout the years, and all that data about the how they've actually performed at an aggregated view for each of those seasons and how they finished in the table as well. So we're first of all going to get rid of some of those null rows. So where we had nulls in here, we're just going to click on those null rows and exclude them. We can see there's nothing, no value to that data being kept in, so we just exclude those. Next, we are going to be looking at the special circumstances. So we're using an if calculation here and looking at this pos field, the position. So if we have a null value in the pos, so the very last row, the most recent season has a null value, so we call that incomplete. If that pos is got the letters A, B, A, N, D, then that is because that season was abandoned midway due to World War II. And then otherwise, we're just going to say that there are no special circumstances and have an NA value. Then we're going to come along to our pos field and find that abandoned value, and we're going to make that a null. So we just click on that, replace it with a null, and then we don't have that value in our data anymore, and it becomes one of the nulls. So we have two null rows here for those special circumstances seasons. Okay, next we want to come along to our numeric league, or sorry, we want to create our numeric league. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to use a little bit of regex. I haven't used it for a while, so I want to sharpen my skills. So we just want to extract the numeric elements of these leagues. And where we don't have a number in them, we know that the championship is going to be a 0 and the national league is going to be a 5. So let's see the calculation for that. So if I open that up, then I'm saying with my first expression here that using regex match, if there is a number within my league field, so I'm saying dot star meaning anything, backslash D meaning number or digit. Sorry, my cat just typed a Y there as well. So the backslash D meaning any digit, and then the dot star meaning there could be anything. The star kind of means 0 or higher, so there might not be anything at all there. So for example, where it ends in a number, it's still going to extract that number, but it's also going to extract it if it's in the middle. And if we do have a number, then I'm using the int function, wrapping that around some more regex to just extract that digit from the league. Okay, and then else if that league is equal to the championship, so that FL-CH, then 0, and otherwise the only other option is that it could be the national league, which we're going to put a value of 5 to. Okay, and that's going to be useful for us in a moment in helping us to decide whether the team were relegated, promoted, or stayed in the same league from season to season. We're going to now extract the year, the start year, the season start. So we just do that by coming to our season field, splitting the values, doing a custom split where we go via the dash and we just want the first field to come away. So that's our season start field that we just rename. And then we make that a numeric value so that we can use it later as a number. And in order to do this next bit, that bit where we're looking at the promoted, relegated, or stayed in the same league, we are just going to use the rank function. On that season start, so that we can create our full season order. So all of the seasons that we have here now are kind of seasons that happened, so I've just called that the full season order, that field. So just ranking that in ascending order. Okay, then we're creating a new step, which we are changing the full season order. We're minusing 1 from that, and you'll see why we do that in a minute. So this is so that we can get our league and our league of the next season onto one row so that we can compare those together. Okay, and then all we want to keep is that full season order and the numeric league so that we can make that calculation in a minute. So then we join this back onto itself, this data. We're joining the full season order to the full season order, and this means that if we find an example here where it's changed so that we can actually see the difference. So if we look at the season of 1907, where they were in the South 2 League, then you can see that we have this numeric league here of 2, and then in the next season they're in South 1, so the next season's numeric league is a 1. And that's how we do that joining onto itself to get those on the same row, so that then we can just do an easy calculation to work out whether they were promoted, relegated, or stayed in the same league. So okay, first of all, we're going to check for our final row in our data set, which I should have mentioned we need to do a left join in order to keep that row in. So then we look at that calculation, we're checking that special circumstance has been complete, that most recent season, and we're giving it a null if that's the case, because there isn't an outcome yet. Otherwise, we're saying if those numeric league for the next season and the numeric league are the same, then they're the same league. If the season for the next year is bigger than the current year, then that means that they've been relegated, because generally League 1 is higher than League 2, even though that kind of makes a bit counterintuitive sense. And then finally, the other option is that they've been promoted. So then we have our outcome field there. Okay, so then we're just tidying up some of our fields here, removing some of the unnecessary fields and changing the league field to have a uncapitalized version of it. Now we're using our new rows step, which is obviously a new step. And we're using the year field, so that season start field, and we're using the minimum maximum going in increments of 1, so you can see that all those World War I, World War II years are coming through for us, and we want the values that our new row should be null. So it's by default on null or 0, so that would put zeros for us in all of these: played, won, lost, drawn. But I think that probably it makes more sense to have nulls there than to have zeros. So we'll leave it at that. Then all we need to do is update some of our fields. So first of all, the season field. So when we've created those new rows, obviously we just have the start year of the season. So we need to change them into actual seasons. So get these nulls into seasons. So the way that we're going to do that, saying if is null the season, then we're going to turn our season start into a string first of all, add on a dash, and then this calculation looks a bit complicated, but we read from the inside out and it's not so bad. So we're saying that we want the right 2 digits of our season start. We need to turn it into a string so that we can use it in a right calculation. So that will give us, say for 1914 season, that will give us the 14. And we want to add 1 to that to make it 15. We had to turn this back into an integer in order to add 1 to it, and then we turn it back into a string in order to add it onto our 2014 dash, and then we need that 15 value. And then for all other fields, we can just leave it as a season, and hopefully that makes sense, and you can see the result. So those null fields, sorry, 1914 was already a complete season, so that's a bad example, but you can see our 1915, how that's working as well. So now we can get rid of that season field. We can update our special circumstances. So if it's null, the special circumstances where we've brought in those new rows. And if the season start is before 1919, then give it a World War I, and otherwise give it World War II. And there we go. The only other thing we want to update is the outcome. So we want to change that null to an NA. And then we've completed all the challenge requirements and got our data into a better shape, filled in the gaps, and created some fields that would be helpful for us for categorizing our data if we take this into Tableau Desktop. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.